Picture a man straining under the weight of a massive stone, his muscles tense, his body bent forward, his hands gripping against the rough surface. The mountain before him is steep, endless, and unforgiving. Every time he reaches the summit, the boulder slips from his grasp and rolls back down, undoing his labor in an instant. There is no finish line, no reward, no applause, only the demand to begin again. This is the ancient image of Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to repeat this pointless task for eternity. Yet when we look closely, we see more than myth, we see ourselves. Because isn't this what life often feels like? Waking up each day to carry out the same routines, battling problems that never seem to end, chasing goals that slip away the moment we think we've caught them. Think about the grind of daily life. You work long hours, pay bills, clean, cook, answer emails, deal with stress, and then do it all again tomorrow. Students cram for exams only to face another pile of assignments. Parents care for their children while exhaustion never seems to leave. Many of us spend our lives pushing our own boulders, financial struggles, emotional wounds, social expectations, endless responsibilities. And when you finally feel like you've made progress, life often finds a way to send the boulder rolling right back down. It's easy to feel trapped in a cycle where nothing ever seems to truly change. This is why the myth of Sisyphus speaks so powerfully across centuries. It is not just about an ancient man cursed by the gods. It is about the human condition itself. This leads to a haunting question. If everything we do eventually crumbles into dust, if our victories are only temporary, if even the strongest among us will one day die and be forgotten, then why keep going? What's the point of pushing the boulder if it will never stay at the top? This is not a small question. To ignore it is to sleepwalk through life. To face it is to confront the very heart of what it means to exist. And this is where the French philosopher Albert Camus enters the story. Camus described this conflict between our hunger for meaning and the universe's silence as the absurd. We crave answers, order, clarity. We want our lives to fit into a grand design. Yet the world refuses to provide that. It simply is. Indifferent to our struggles, deaf to our questions. Camus did not see this as a reason to despair, but as a starting point for living honestly. For him, the recognition of the absurd was not the end of life, but the beginning of true freedom. So the question is not, how do we escape the struggle, but how do we learn to embrace it? Sisyphus teaches us that the meaning of life is not found at the top of the mountain, but in the act of pushing itself. To live is to carry the boulder. To endure is to revolt against the emptiness by continuing anyway. This perspective will guide everything that follows. The idea that strength, resilience, and even joy can be found not by eliminating the struggle, but by choosing to face it with open eyes and unbroken will. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus was once a cunning king of Corinth, known less for his bravery and more for his trickery. He was clever to the point of arrogance, a man who believed he could outwit even the gods themselves. His crimes were not just petty lies or deceitful bargains, they were acts of defiance against the very structure of existence. He betrayed the sacred laws of hospitality by murdering travelers and guests, violating one of the most sacred codes of ancient Greece. He tricked Thanatos, the god of death, chaining him up so that no mortal could die. While death was bound, the world fell into chaos, battles with no casualties, wounds that never ended in release, and a cosmic order disrupted. When the gods finally intervened and forced Thanatos' freedom, Sisyphus found yet another way to cheat death. tricking even Hades himself into allowing him to return to the living world under false pretenses. It was only after repeated acts of arrogance and defiance that the gods had enough. Zeus decided that Sisyphus's punishment would not be a fiery pit, nor chains, nor torment at the hands of demons. Instead, it would be something far more cruel and profound, meaningless, repetitive labor. His fate was simple but devastating. Sisyphus was condemned to roll a massive boulder up a steep mountain. The task demanded every ounce of his strength. Step by step, he would strain against the stone, inching toward the summit. Yet the moment he neared the peak, the rock would slip from his grasp, tumbling back down with thunderous force. And Sisyphus would be forced to descend the slope, his effort erased, his work undone, only to begin again. For eternity there was no reward, no completion, no sense of achievement, just an endless cycle of pushing, failing, and repeating. This was his punishment, chosen precisely because it mirrored the most terrifying possibility of human existence, that our labor, our struggles, our entire lives might amount to nothing. The symbolism is almost impossible to miss. The boulder is the weight of life's endless struggles. Every hardship, every obligation, every challenge that presses against us can be seen in that stone. The mountain represents the journey of existence itself, steep, unrelenting, and indifferent to our efforts. Just as Sisyphus pushes his boulder only to see it roll back down, we rise each morning to face the same responsibilities, the same challenges, the same fears, no matter how many times we've already confronted them. The punishment is terrifying not because it is painful, but because it is pointless. We are not afraid of suffering alone. We are afraid of suffering that has no meaning. This is why the myth of Sisyphus has endured through centuries. Ancient myths often feel distant from us, full of gods, monsters, and battles that belong to another world. But Sisyphus is different. His story does not take place in far-off lands with impossible heroes. It takes place in the quiet repetition of our own lives. Every Monday morning commute, every bill that needs paying, every repetitive task at work, all of it echoes the slow, grinding climb of Sisyphus. The myth resonates because it does not describe an extraordinary fate reserved for one man. It describes the ordinary fate of us all. Think about the person who works tirelessly at a job they dislike just to make enough money to survive, only to spend it all on bills that arrive again next month. The cycle never ends. Earn, spend, repeat. Or consider the student who studies for years, takes exams, passes, and then is faced with more advanced studies, more exams, and then the endless challenges of professional life. The struggle does not stop, it simply changes form. Even in relationships, many find themselves repeating the same arguments, falling into the same patterns, or facing heartbreaks that seem to erase all the effort they put in. The boulder rolls down and they must push again. Even our personal growth feels Sisyphean at times. You make progress on your fitness journey only to fall off track and start over. You heal from a wound in your past only for another hardship to come. You build discipline only to feel it slip away during times of weakness. Every time we think we have reached the top, life has a way of knocking us back down. Just like Sisyphus, we are forced to climb again, knowing that the summit will never truly be conquered. What makes the myth even more unsettling is its inevitability. Sisyphus cannot choose to walk away. He cannot stop pushing the stone, nor can he destroy it. His fate is to endure the endless cycle with no hope of escape, and in many ways that reflects the human condition itself. We cannot choose not to exist. We cannot refuse to live without consequence. We are born, we struggle, we push, and eventually we fall. The question is not whether the boulder will roll down. It always will. The question is what we do with that knowledge. For most, this realization feels like despair. To imagine that all our effort is ultimately erased, that all our victories fade, that even the greatest empires crumble, it can feel paralyzing. And yet here lies the brilliance of Albert Camus. Where others saw only hopelessness in Sisyphus's punishment, Camus saw something radical. He argued that the myth of Sisyphus is not a story of despair, but a story of liberation. If life is truly like the task of pushing the boulder, repetitive, difficult, and without final meaning, then we are free to stop searching for some ultimate reward and instead embrace the struggle itself. This interpretation flips the entire myth on its head. Instead of imagining Sisyphus crushed by his punishment, Camus asks us to imagine him content, even happy. Each climb, though destined to end in failure, becomes his moment of defiance. Each push of the boulder is an act of rebellion against meaninglessness. The gods may have given him a punishment, but they could not strip him of his freedom to choose how he would respond. And that, according to Camus, is where real strength is born. By retelling this myth in such a way, Camus turns what seems like the bleakest possible story into one of the most empowering. We do not escape the boulder, but we can embrace it. We do not overcome the mountain, but we can climb it with pride. The myth endures because it mirrors our own lives. But Camus teaches us that what we do with that mirror is up to us. We can see despair, or we can see the opportunity to live fully, even without guarantees. And this is where the conversation turns, from punishment to freedom, from despair to revolt, from meaningless struggle to the possibility of joy within the struggle itself. The absurd is one of Albert Camus' most powerful and unsettling ideas. At its core, it describes the clash between two forces that live within every human life: our desperate hunger for meaning and the universe's complete silence in response. On one side, there is us, human beings who wake up each day asking why we are here, what our lives are for, and what our suffering means. On the other side, there is the universe, vast, unresponsive, indifferent. We cry out for answers, but none come back. We look for patterns, but all we find is chaos. That collision, that tension between our yearning and the emptiness we encounter is what Camus called the absurd. It is not the universe alone that is absurd, nor humanity alone. It is the meeting of the two. We want life to make sense, but it does not. This realization is often shocking. We grow up being told stories that imply life has a clear purpose, religious doctrines that promise salvation, cultural myths that suggest success will bring fulfillment, personal fantasies that imagine happiness waiting just around the corner if only we achieve enough. But at some point, often in adulthood or during a crisis, people realize that no such guarantee exists. The universe does not hand us meaning. No matter how much progress we make, no matter how many prayers we offer, no matter how many goals we achieve, the same unsettling fact returns. There is no pre-written script guiding our lives. We may crave certainty, but the world offers none. It simply exists, indifferent to our struggles. For many, this moment feels like having the ground pulled from beneath them. It is like suddenly waking up to realize you've been climbing a ladder that leads nowhere. Faced with this terrifying truth, most people look for a way to escape it. Camus recognized two common forms of escape that appear throughout history. The first is nihilism, the belief that because life has no ultimate purpose, nothing matters at all. This perspective often leads to despair, apathy, and even destruction. If nothing matters, why work, why love, why live? The second escape is blind faith, turning to religious or ideological systems that promise ultimate meaning beyond this world. While these beliefs can comfort people, Camus argued that they often function as a way of avoiding the confrontation with the absurd. They give answers where none exist, and in doing so, they allow us to avoid facing the raw, unfiltered reality of our condition. Camus refused both options. For him, nihilism was a dead end, because it destroyed life rather than affirmed it. Blind faith was also an escape, because it demanded surrender to illusions rather than honesty. Instead, Camus proposed something more radical. We must face the absurd directly, without flinching, without running, without pretending. This meant accepting the fact that life has no guaranteed purpose, and yet continuing to live fully, passionately, and courageously anyway. This is what he called revolt. Not a revolt against the universe itself, but against the temptation to flee into lies or despair. To understand this better, consider how the absurd shows up in our daily lives. Imagine sitting at work day after day, staring at spreadsheets or emails, and suddenly wondering why any of it matters. The bills will keep coming, the tasks will keep piling up, and in the end, you will die. And someone else will sit in your chair doing the same. That sharp, uncomfortable thought is a glimpse of the absurd. Or imagine scrolling endlessly through social media looking for distraction, validation, or entertainment. Hours pass, but nothing really changes. You are entertained perhaps, but a nagging emptiness remains, as if none of it adds up to anything real. Again, that is the absurd showing itself. We chase recognition, likes, or approval, but the moment we get them, the satisfaction fades, and we're left hungry again. It is the human cry for meaning colliding with the silence of the digital void. Relationships can also reveal the absurd. Two people love each other deeply, but even love cannot protect them from misunderstandings, struggles, or the finality of death. Parents sacrifice for their children, yet children grow, move on, and face their own struggles. Every effort to create permanence is eventually undone by time. This does not mean love is meaningless, but it does mean that love cannot provide the ultimate answer we might want it to. Once again, our desire for lasting certainty collides with the reality of impermanence. Most of us, when confronted with this, instinctively run from it. We bury ourselves in distractions, television, scrolling through feeds, consuming endless entertainment, or overloading our schedules so we don't have time to think. Others chase external validation, career achievements, fame, wealth, or approval from others, hoping that one of these will finally fill the void. But the absurd has a way of returning. Even the wealthiest, most successful people eventually face the same question. What was it all for? The applause fades, the money loses its shine, and the question remains unanswered. Camus challenges us to stop running. He asks us, what if instead of trying to escape the absurd, we looked it in the eye? What if we accepted that life has no built-in meaning, and yet decided to live with passion and courage anyway? What if we stopped demanding that the universe give us purpose, and instead embraced the freedom to create our own? This is the heart of Camus' radical philosophy. By refusing to escape, we reclaim our freedom. We no longer live for some distant promise or fall into despair because meaning is absent. Instead, we find meaning in the very act of living, in our choices, our actions, our struggles, and our defiance. It is important to understand that this is not easy. Facing the absurd is uncomfortable, even terrifying. It means admitting that no external force will come to save us. It means we cannot rely on the fantasy that someday, somehow, everything will finally make sense. But in this very discomfort lies a profound liberation. If life has no pre-written purpose, then we are free to shape it ourselves. If there is no cosmic script, then we are no longer bound to play a role we did not choose. The weight of the absurd is also the weight of freedom. Imagine living without the burden of trying to prove yourself to the universe, to God, to society, or to history. Imagine being free to live fully in the present moment, knowing that this moment is enough. That is what facing the absurd offers. It does not erase the struggle, it redefines it. The question is no longer why go on, but how will I go on? Will I live in despair, or will I embrace the struggle and live authentically? Camus believed that this confrontation with the absurd is the starting point of real strength. To live honestly in a world without guarantees requires courage. To find joy in the face of futility requires defiance. To continue climbing the mountain, even when the boulder will always roll back down, requires a kind of heroism that no external reward can give. Sisyphus, condemned to eternal labor, becomes the perfect symbol of this attitude. He knows the task is pointless in the cosmic sense, yet he continues. And in that continuation lies his dignity, his freedom, and even his happiness. So the key question becomes, what if we stopped running from the absurd? What if, instead of numbing ourselves with distractions or chasing validation, we simply accepted that life is difficult, uncertain, and ultimately without fixed meaning, and then lived with strength anyway? What if we pushed our own boulders, not because we expect a final victory, but because the act of pushing is itself a victory? This question does not lead to despair, but to possibility. It opens the door to a life lived more fully, more freely, and more authentically than any escape could ever provide. Revolt, in the philosophy of Albert Camus, does not mean what it usually does in the political sense. It is not an uprising with banners and weapons. It is not the overthrow of rulers or the destruction of governments. Camus used the word revolt to describe something deeper and far more personal, the stance we take toward existence itself. When faced with the absurd, the realization that life has no pre-written meaning, no divine guarantee, no final purpose, Camus said that the only authentic response is to revolt. This revolt is not about defeating the absurd because that is impossible. It is not about escaping it because every escape is dishonest. Instead, it is about continuing to live fully, passionately, and courageously in full awareness of life's lack of ultimate meaning. It is the act of saying, yes, life is hard, yes, it is absurd, and yet I choose to live anyway. This refusal to give in is the heart of Camus' philosophy. To revolt is to deny despair its victory. When you revolt, you do not sink into nihilism, nor do you cling to illusions of a hidden plan or promised afterlife. You look the truth in the eye and decide to keep walking. You keep pushing your boulder up the mountain even though it will roll down again. You accept that the struggle will not end, but you make the struggle itself your source of strength. This is not an easy path. It demands courage, honesty, and endurance. But for Camus, it was the only path that led to genuine freedom. In a way, revolt is like breathing fire into an otherwise cold and indifferent world. It is the human spirit declaring, you may strip away meaning, but you cannot strip away my ability to live, to love, to act, and to create. Revolt turns existence from a passive experience into an act of defiance. It transforms every step, every action, every effort into a kind of rebellion against nothingness. Camus is not calling for resignation, he is calling for intensity. He is saying that even though life is without ultimate purpose, we can still live with passion, creativity, and joy. The power is not in escaping the absurd, but in confronting it daily and refusing to let it crush us. To understand revolt more clearly, it helps to contrast it with resignation. Resignation is when we give up, when we allow despair to dictate our choices. It is the voice that says, "Why bother?" and then walks away. Resignation is when we stop fighting, stop loving, stop striving because we have convinced ourselves that it is all pointless. Revolt, on the other hand, is the opposite. It is the voice that says, "It may be pointless, but I will do it anyway. I will live, even if there is no reason to live." That choice, that stubbornness, is what makes revolt so radical. It takes the lack of meaning and flips it into freedom. If nothing is written, then everything is possible. Camus' idea of revolt has interesting parallels with Stoicism. The Stoics, like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, taught that we must focus only on what we can control and accept everything else with equanimity. If pain, hardship, or death come our way, we must not resist them in vain but learn to endure them with dignity. Camus agreed with the Stoics in spirit, but his emphasis was slightly different. Where the Stoics taught mastery of the self in harmony with nature, Camus taught defiance in the face of a silent universe. For Marcus Aurelius, wisdom was accepting that everything happens according to a natural order. For Camus, wisdom was admitting there may be no order at all and still choosing to live with strength. Both philosophies meet in their demand for courage, but they diverge in their reasons for it. You can think of Stoicism as teaching, focus on what you control. You cannot stop the storm, but you can control your reaction. Camus, on the other hand, teaches, keep living, despite it all. You cannot change the absurd, but you can live defiantly within it. Both approaches give us tools for resilience, but Camus' revolt adds an extra layer of fire. It is not just about self-control, it is about rebellious joy in the face of futility. Where Stoicism is calm and disciplined, Camus' revolt is passionate and rebellious. Both, however, lead to strength. So how does revolt apply to our daily lives? Consider the boulders we each carry. For some, the boulder might be a job that feels endless and unrewarding. For others, it might be the burden of loneliness, grief, or financial pressure. For many, it might be the constant cycle of anxiety and doubt that never seems to leave. These are the places where the absurd reveals itself most clearly. The instinct is often to avoid the boulder, to distract ourselves, to escape into entertainment, to numb the pain with temporary pleasures. But Camus' revolt calls us to do the opposite. Instead of avoiding the weight, we choose to face it. We push the boulder, not because it will ever stay at the top, but because the pushing itself becomes our act of defiance. Here is a practical way to start. Take out a piece of paper and list the areas in your life where the boulder feels heaviest. Be honest. Maybe it is your work, maybe it is a broken relationship, maybe it is your own mind full of doubts and fears. Write them down. Then, instead of asking how you can get rid of these struggles, ask how you can face them with defiance. How can you continue despite them? How can you push the boulder, knowing it may roll back down, but finding strength in the act itself? This shift in perspective can turn despair into resilience. It changes the question from why me to what now? Take, for example, someone dealing with constant rejection. Every attempt to succeed ends in failure. Every effort seems wasted. The natural reaction is to give up. But revolt says, try again. Not because you believe the universe will eventually reward you, but because the act of trying itself is a form of freedom. Or consider someone battling depression. The weight feels unbearable, the mountain impossible. Revolt says, get out of bed even if it feels meaningless. Live even if you do not yet see the point. Each act, however small, becomes an act of rebellion against despair. This is what makes revolt so human and so powerful. It does not promise a happy ending. It does not guarantee that your struggles will vanish. Instead, it gives you a way to live honestly and fiercely in the face of struggle. To revolt is to claim your life back from meaninglessness. It is to declare that even if the universe does not care, you do. Even if existence is indifferent, you will not be indifferent. You will live, and in doing so, you will create your own dignity, your own value, your own joy. In the end, revolt is less about victory and more about persistence. It is not about reaching the top of the mountain, but about continuing to climb it. Camus asks us to imagine Sisyphus not as broken but as defiant. Each step up the mountain, each push of the stone is his rebellion. The gods condemned him to labor, but they could not condemn him to despair. That choice belongs to him. And in the same way, no matter how heavy your boulder, no matter how steep your mountain, the choice of whether to surrender or to revolt belongs to you. When you embrace revolt, you stop waiting for life to hand you meaning and begin to create meaning through your actions. You stop hoping for the struggle to end and start finding strength within the struggle itself. You stop running from the absurd and start living alongside it. And that, according to Camus, is where true freedom lies. The boulder may never stay at the top, but the act of pushing, day after day, step after step, becomes your declaration of life. Camus' most famous and provocative statement comes at the end of his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. At first, this sounds absurd in itself. How could a man condemned to push a rock up a mountain for all eternity possibly be happy? His task is endless, his progress erased at every turn, his efforts doomed to repeat without purpose or finish line. Happiness seems impossible under such a fate. But Camus was not joking. He was not mocking suffering or making light of despair. Instead, he was pointing us toward a deeper truth, that happiness is not dependent on outcomes, on rewards, or on the illusion of final success. Happiness, for Camus, can be found in the very act of living, even in struggle, even in futility. The key lies in how we choose to interpret our struggle. If we see the boulder as an enemy, as a curse, then every step up the mountain is misery. Each failure, each time the stone rolls down, is a reminder of our defeat. But if we learn to see the boulder differently, everything changes. The boulder becomes proof of life. It is the weight that reminds us we are here, we are moving, we are alive. To push the stone is to participate in existence itself. Without the boulder, there is no struggle. Without the struggle, there is no experience. The mountain may be endless, but it gives us something to climb. The boulder may be heavy, but it gives us something to push against. In this way, the very thing that seems like punishment becomes a source of vitality. Camus teaches that the act of pushing itself creates meaning. The outcome does not matter. Whether the boulder stays at the top or rolls down again is irrelevant. What matters is the experience of pushing, the engagement with life, the defiance in each step. This is a radical shift in perspective because most of us are taught to believe that meaning lies in results. We are told that we must reach the summit, win the prize, achieve the goal, and only then will we be fulfilled. But Camus reminds us that the summit never lasts. Every victory fades, every achievement becomes the beginning of another climb, every moment of success rolls back down the mountain in time. If happiness depends on outcomes, it will always be fleeting. But if happiness can be found in the process, then it can exist right now, in the midst of the climb. Think about the difference between chasing final success and finding joy in the process. When we chase success, we live in the future. We tell ourselves, I will be happy when I graduate, when I get the promotion, when I make enough money, when I find the perfect partner. Happiness becomes a distant destination, always out of reach. As soon as we reach one goal, another appears. The boulder rolls back down, and we feel empty again. But when we learn to love the process, happiness is no longer postponed. It exists in the act of learning, growing, striving, and pushing. We stop waiting for the future to give us joy and begin finding joy in the present effort. Modern life gives us countless examples of this principle. Consider fitness. Someone who only exercises to achieve the perfect body will almost always be frustrated. The process is slow, progress is inconsistent, and the perfect body may never come. But someone who learns to enjoy the act of training itself, the sweat, the discipline, the small victories along the way, can find joy every day. The exercise itself becomes the reward. The climb is no longer torture but a source of life. Or think about art. An artist who paints only for fame or recognition will struggle endlessly with disappointment. Most works will not be celebrated, and even when success comes, it quickly fades. But the artist who loves the act of painting, the brush against the canvas, the mixing of colors, the flow of creation, finds fulfillment whether or not anyone else notices. The boulder of endless creation does not crush them, it gives them purpose. Even in something like making YouTube videos, the same truth applies. If the creator obsesses only over views, subscribers, or viral success, they will constantly feel unsatisfied. Numbers rise and fall, trends come and go, and the boulder always rolls back down. But if the creator learns to enjoy the process, the research, the writing, the recording, the editing, then each step becomes rewarding, regardless of external results. The act of creating itself becomes the source of meaning, not the outcome. The same principle holds for learning. If a student studies only to get good grades or a degree, the effort can feel exhausting and hollow. But if they learn to love the act of discovery, the excitement of new knowledge, the sharpening of their mind, then each moment of study becomes meaningful in itself. The mountain of education is long, but the climb can be joyful if the focus shifts from the outcome to the process. This is the essence of Camus' statement. To imagine Sisyphus happy is to understand that happiness is not something delivered at the top of the mountain. It is something created with each push of the stone. It is not something reserved for the end of the journey, but something that can be found in the journey itself. The act of pushing, of living, of striving, becomes its own form of fulfillment. Of course, this is easier said than done. Most of us are conditioned to chase results. We look at our struggles and think, if only I get through this, then I'll be happy. But Camus challenges us to flip the perspective. What if the struggle itself is where happiness hides? What if the climb, the resistance, the act of effort is where we become most alive? To practice this shift, one useful exercise is journaling. Set aside a few minutes and write down the areas in your life where you might find joy in the act itself, not just the result. Ask yourself, where do I enjoy the process, even when the outcome is uncertain? Maybe you love the feeling of running, even if you never win a race. Maybe you love the act of writing, even if no one reads your work. Maybe you love cooking, even if the meal is simple and unnoticed. Maybe you love conversations with friends, even if they don't lead anywhere profound. Write them down, reflect on them. These are your moments of Sisyphus's happiness. The times when the boulder is heavy, but the act of pushing fills you with life. The point is not to deny that outcomes matter. Results can be rewarding and achievements can inspire pride. But they are not the foundation of happiness. They are temporary peaks, moments before the stone rolls back down. The deeper, more enduring source of joy is found in the climb itself. This is the radical freedom Camus offered. By shifting our focus from distant victories to present effort, from outcomes to process, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of disappointment. We begin to live in the now, to savor the struggle, to push the boulder with a smile. In the end, Camus' vision of happiness is not about escaping struggle, but about embracing it. The mountain will always be there, the boulder will always roll down, but this does not have to be a curse. It can be a gift, the very thing that keeps us alive, moving, striving, and growing. To imagine Sisyphus happy is to imagine ourselves happy, not because life is easy or final success is guaranteed, but because we have learned to love the act of living itself. Happiness, then, is not at the top of the mountain. It is in every step we take, every push we make, every moment we live. True freedom, according to Camus, does not arrive when life suddenly gives us answers, nor when the struggle finally ends, but when we stop demanding that existence provide us with meaning. This is the paradox that so many people miss. The very thing we believe will enslave us, the endless weight of the boulder, the ceaseless climb up the mountain, becomes the condition for our liberation once we stop fighting against it. Most of us live with the hope that one day, everything will finally make sense. We believe that after we achieve enough, after we find the right person, after we get the dream job, or after we discover some hidden truth, life will finally reveal its purpose. But Camus urges us to drop that expectation altogether. Life may never explain itself. The mountain may never end. The boulder will always roll back down. And yet, instead of despairing over this reality, we can discover a strange kind of freedom within it. When you stop demanding that life give you meaning, you are free to give it your own. This shift is subtle but life-changing. Imagine someone constantly wrestling with the question, why am I here? They spend years chasing religion, philosophy, or external achievements, trying to fill that void. But the moment they accept that perhaps there is no pre-written answer, something astonishing happens. The weight of expectation disappears. They no longer need to conform to a grand plan. They no longer need to prove themselves worthy of some external approval. They no longer live under the shadow of should. Instead, they are free to live authentically, moment by moment, shaping their own meaning through their choices. The chains of needing life to justify itself are broken. That is freedom. Camus' Sisyphus is the embodiment of this paradox. To an outsider, his punishment seems unbearable. He is trapped in futility, condemned to repeat the same task forever. But Camus insists that if Sisyphus accepts his fate fully, if he no longer resists the reality of his condition, then he is no longer crushed by it. He is liberated. The gods may have given him the stone, but they cannot dictate how he feels about it. They cannot prevent him from smiling as he walks down the mountain, ready to push again. In his acceptance, Sisyphus becomes greater than his punishment. He turns inevitability into defiance. He transforms meaninglessness into freedom. We can see echoes of this in the lives of people around us. Consider the artist who creates despite knowing that fame may never come. They paint, write, or compose not because the world promises to recognize them, but because the act of creation itself is enough. Their art is their boulder, heavy and demanding, but chosen willingly. They accept that obscurity may be their fate, yet this acceptance liberates them. They are free to create authentically, without bending to trends or external approval. Their freedom lies in knowing that meaning is not in recognition, but in the act of creating itself. Or think about athletes who train endlessly, often in obscurity for years on end. They wake before dawn, push their bodies to exhaustion, and repeat drills that most people would find mind-numbingly repetitive. They know the competition will be fierce, and victory is never guaranteed. Yet they keep training. Why? Because they have accepted the reality of the climb. The repetition is not punishment, but liberation. By embracing the endless nature of their struggle, they free themselves from the illusion that only victory matters. For them, the training itself becomes life-giving. The climb itself is their freedom. We also see this in individuals who endure illness or hardship with grace. For many, disease or disability can feel like the heaviest boulder of all. The temptation is to curse fate, to resist the reality of suffering, to ask endlessly, why me? But some reach a place of acceptance. They stop demanding that life be fair or painless, and instead focus on living fully within the conditions they are given. This acceptance is not surrender, but a new form of power. By no longer resisting what cannot be changed, they conserve their energy for what they can do: love, create, connect, endure. In that acceptance lies a dignity and freedom that even illness cannot take away. This is why Camus' vision is so radical. He does not offer us the false comfort of escape. He does not say that life will suddenly reveal its secret, or that the struggle will magically vanish. Instead, he gives us something stronger. The knowledge that freedom is already available to us, here and now, if we accept life on its own terms. Freedom is not at the top of the mountain, it is in the way we walk as we climb. For practical reflection, consider this exercise. Take a piece of paper and write down something in your life that you keep resisting. It might be a responsibility you hate, a loss you can't let go of, a weakness you wish you didn't have, or a challenge that feels unfair. Write it clearly. Then pause and reframe it as your chosen boulder. Instead of seeing it as a punishment, see it as part of your mountain, the climb you are meant to make. Ask yourself, how can I push this with strength rather than waste my energy resisting it? How can I embrace this as part of my life rather than endlessly wishing it were gone? The act of reframing does not erase the pain, but it transforms the relationship. Suddenly, you are not a victim being crushed. You are a climber pushing your stone with dignity. Acceptance is not passivity. It does not mean we stop working for change or improvement. It means we stop wasting energy on illusions. We stop demanding that life be easy, fair, or meaningful in some cosmic sense. Instead, we face reality as it is, and in doing so, we become free to live authentically. We stop running from our boulders and start pushing them with open eyes and a steady heart. In this freedom, we are no longer controlled by fear of failure, disappointment, or meaninglessness. We may not control the mountain, but we control how we climb it. This freedom through acceptance may be the hardest lesson of all, because it requires us to give up the comforting lies we have been told. But it is also the most empowering. To accept life as it is, without demanding it be different, is to find a freedom deeper than any external success could provide. It is the freedom of authenticity, the freedom of living without illusion, the freedom of walking down the mountain with a smile, ready to push again. When we look at Sisyphus only from the outside, it's tempting to see him purely as a victim. He is trapped, condemned by the gods, denied any final reward. His fate is endless labor that leads nowhere. But Camus flips this image upside down and insists that Sisyphus is not only free, but a model for how we should live. To imagine Sisyphus happy is to see him not as broken, but as transcendent. He has turned punishment into defiance, futility into freedom. By embracing his struggle rather than resisting it, he rises above the very gods who sought to humiliate him. In this way, Sisyphus becomes not just a figure of despair, but a role model for us all. He shows us that even in the harshest conditions, we can live with dignity, courage, and joy. To live like Sisyphus is to stop waiting for life to become easy. Too often we postpone our living. We say, "I'll enjoy myself when I finally get the promotion," or "I'll find peace when my problems go away," or "I'll start living authentically once I feel safe." But the truth is that the boulder will never disappear. There will always be challenges, responsibilities, and losses. The person who waits for life to become smooth is the person who never truly lives. Sisyphus, in contrast, does not wait. He embraces the stone, knowing it will never stay at the top, and still he climbs. His life is not about reaching a perfect end, but about living fully in the endless push. That is the lesson we can take. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect, because they never will be. Life is happening now, in the middle of the climb, in the midst of the wait. This leads us to a contrast between safety and what Camus called dangerous freedom. Safety is the life spent avoiding pain, avoiding risk, and avoiding the discomfort of struggle. Many choose this path. They take the job they hate, but that feels secure. They settle for a shallow life rather than risk disappointment. They numb themselves with distractions rather than confront the absurd. Safety may seem comforting, but it is ultimately a kind of slavery. Dangerous freedom, on the other hand, is what Sisyphus embodies. It is the choice to live authentically even when there are no guarantees, to embrace struggle even when there is no final victory. Dangerous freedom is terrifying because it strips away illusions, but it is also the only path to true aliveness. When you live like Sisyphus, you trade the illusion of safety for the reality of freedom. You walk the mountain not because it leads somewhere final, but because walking it is your act of rebellion, your declaration that you are alive. This is what makes Sisyphus heroic. The heroic life is not about results. It is not about final victories or lasting achievements. It is about relentless effort, about courage in the face of the impossible. Sisyphus knows he will never reach the summit, and yet he climbs anyway. His heroism lies not in conquering the mountain, but in refusing to surrender to despair. Likewise, the truly heroic life is not lived by those who win in the traditional sense, but by those who keep going no matter what. The person who continues to create even when no one applauds, the person who continues to love even after heartbreak, the person who continues to endure even under suffering. These are our modern heroes. Their victory is not in outcomes, but in persistence. If we want to live like Sisyphus, we need a roadmap, a way to apply his lesson to our own lives. The first step is simple. Stop waiting for life to be easy. Let go of the illusion that one day the mountain will disappear. Instead of postponing your living, embrace the climb as it is. See each challenge not as an interruption, but as the essence of life itself. The second step is to choose a boulder worth pushing. Not all struggles are equal, and not all are chosen wisely. Some people push boulders that don't belong to them. They live someone else's life, chase someone else's dream, or carry stones handed down by society's expectations. To live authentically, you must choose your own stone. What is worth your effort? What struggle gives your life direction, even if it never leads to a final victory? Choose that and embrace it fully. The third step is to find joy in the process. Do not wait until the boulder reaches the summit to feel proud or alive. That moment will never last. Instead, discover fulfillment in each push, each step, each breath along the way. Just as the artist finds joy in creating, not just in recognition, and the athlete finds joy in training, not just in trophies, you must learn to savor the act of pushing itself. That is where happiness hides, in the process, not in the result. Finally, the fourth step is to accept the absurd and live fully. Do not run from the silence of the universe. Do not demand answers that may never come. Instead, face reality as it is, and in doing so, embrace your freedom. Once you stop insisting that life owes you meaning, you are free to create meaning through your living. This roadmap may sound difficult, but it is also empowering. When you stop demanding that life be different, you no longer live in resentment. When you choose your own boulder, you live authentically. When you find joy in the climb, you live presently. When you accept the absurd, you live freely. Each step transforms your relationship with struggle, turning it from punishment into power. Philosophers across history have echoed this lesson in their own ways. Nietzsche urged us to embrace amor fati, the love of fate, to not only accept our struggles, but to cherish them as essential to who we are. He said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." To live like Sisyphus is to live amor fati, to embrace your mountain as your destiny and to push your stone with love, not hatred. Viktor Frankl, who endured the horrors of the concentration camps, taught something similar. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Even in suffering, we can choose our attitude. Frankl showed that freedom lies in how we respond to struggle, not in whether we escape it. And Camus himself gave us the ultimate declaration. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Together, these voices remind us that transcendence is not found in escape, but in endurance. It is not found in illusions, but in defiance. It is not found at the top of the mountain, but in the act of climbing it with open eyes and an unbroken will. To live like Sisyphus is to live courageously, freely, and authentically in a world that offers no guarantees. It is to stop waiting, stop running, and start embracing the weight as your proof of life. It is to smile as the boulder rolls down, knowing that tomorrow you will push again, and that in pushing, you are already victorious. Life is the boulder. No matter who we are, no matter what path we take, we cannot escape struggle. Responsibilities pile up, losses strike, and challenges return just when we thought we had overcome them. The mountain does not disappear. The stone always waits for us at the bottom. To live is to push again and again, step by step, knowing that the summit is never final. This is not a flaw in life. It is life itself. The question then is not whether we will struggle, that much is certain. The real question is how we will face it. We can choose despair, to see our effort as meaningless, to give up, to let the weight crush us, or we can choose defiance. We can decide, like Sisyphus, that even if the boulder always rolls back down, the act of pushing it is enough. We can meet the absurd with courage, refusing to let it break us. This is the choice each of us makes every day, to surrender or to stand tall in defiance. And there is a kind of pride in choosing to push. Better to lean into the weight of life with determination than to let despair take away your dignity. Better to say, yes, the climb is endless, but I will climb anyway, than to sit at the bottom of the mountain, defeated before you even begin. In that defiance, there is freedom. In that freedom, there is joy. To push with pride is to reclaim your life, not as a finished story with a guaranteed ending, but as a struggle you have chosen to embrace. So let this be the call to action. Imagine Sisyphus happy, and imagine yourself the same. Imagine yourself not crushed by your burdens, but strengthened by them. Imagine yourself not waiting for life to be easy, but finding meaning in the effort itself. Imagine yourself smiling as you walk back down the mountain, ready to push again, knowing that the climb is your victory. And let us end with the words of Camus himself, the man who gave us this radical vision of freedom. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy.